Hi guys, this is Gridley again with another comparative pen review. And this comparative pen review or overview is a comparison in between two pens who at first glance almost look exactly the same, but they aren't. The pens that we're talking about right here are the Graf von Faber-Castell Guilloche that I hold in my hand right here, and the Graf von Faber-Castell Classic. Many thanks once again to Appelboom Pennen and Pinoblo for having sent me those two beauties here over for review. I have already covered those two in single pen reviews, which is why I won't really dig extremely deep into the details of each of those pens, but what I want to do right here is focusing on the similarities and differences, and because there is a quite substantial difference in price in between those two, I hope that that will help you guys out there to make an informed decision which of those two may be the right ones for you. Guys, let's have a look at those two pens at a distance. As said, similarities at first glance. These pens are very similar design. It's a cylindric barrel. They're all available in different colors, so let's not focus on color too much. Material wise, the Guilloche is made out of resin, a Guilloche resin, whereas the Classic is made out of a fluted precious wood. At a distance, you don't yet really see that. They then both have this iconic cap that you also find on the Perfect pencil with this ski slope shaped clip and the trumpet or crown shaped cap top. And then you do find a reflective piston knobbish look alike end of the barrel. They are both Cartridge Converter fillers. They are not piston fillers. So that's as far as it goes to capped comparisons. We can uncap them real quick at a distance. You see already a first difference here. This is on the Classic a screw-on cap, whereas on the Guilloche we have a pop-on cap. But then again, these pens are very similar. The sections look fairly the same. Hourglass shape. Nibs are about the same size. A duotone nib on the Classic, a single tone nib on the Guilloche. But that's where the similarities end. And now let's bring those two a little closer and focus on the differences. And there are actually quite a few differences. And hey, before we bring them closer, let's look at the first difference already at a distance. And I think you can see that the Graf von Faber-Castell Classic is quite a bit longer than the Guilloche. And maybe you can also already guess at the distance that it's also a tad thicker, at least the body. Let's now finally bring those two close. And I think you can see first difference. Yes, the Classic is wider in diameter of the body than the Guilloche. It is also wider in diameter of the cap, and the cap is also quite a bit larger. You can also see that the crown is larger in volume, or in diameter rather. I think you can see that fairly well. You can also see that in comparison, the Classic has this ridge down here, which the Guilloche does not have. You can also see a slight difference in the crest right here. That one here is the standard one, whereas the one on the Classic looks more refined, more advanced, more luxurious. The one on the Classic is definitely laser engraved, whereas the one on the Guilloche I am not 100% sure if that is etched in or if it's actually screen printed. Not 100% sure. Both pens then have this upper ring or ridge here. The lower one you only find again on the Classic. The clips are then fairly similar. I would say they're exactly the same. Center band on the Classic says Graf von Faber-Castell, Germany. To my surprise, on the Classic says Graf von Faber-Castell, handmade in Germany. I would have expected the handmade in Germany branding or brand mark on this one here as well. It's not there. Then you see the difference in material and barrel diameter. As said, this here is a precious wood. You see the graining in the wood, very nice. Whereas this here is a high quality resin with a guilloche pattern. Both looks very nice, of course. And then another slight difference here at the end. This one has a Classic, has a step down here, whereas the guilloche does not have a step down. Let's uncap them. Another difference, as said, the guilloche pop-off cap, the Classic a screw on or off cap. Let's look again at the caps. Quite considerable size difference. I think you can tell that once again. Sections, both chrome sections. The sections are actually exactly the same in diameter. At least I've not measured them, but I cannot possibly spot any difference with my bare eye. And also the nibs are exactly the same, apart from the fact that this is a duotone nib and this is a monotone nib. The nib on the Classic does appear larger than the nib on the guilloche, but it's actually not. The only difference is, and I think you can see that at this line here above the nib width designation, fine or medium, the only difference is that this nib here on the Classic does not sit as deep in the nib collar than on the guilloche. And I'm not sure if this is only on my example right here, and maybe this nib should actually be pushed back a little bit further. They both write flawlessly, so I didn't see a reason for trying that. But having that said, the nib on the Classic does appear, of course, then a little bit larger. Uncapped. Again, the Classic is slightly longer. And then when we open up these two, they are both Cartridge Converter filled. Stay here. Right, that's what it looks like. Let's look at the sections just to show you that they're exactly alike. Screw those two back together. I'll do a quick, very quick writing sample just to show you, and because I do have a fine and a medium nib here, that there is a substantial difference in nib width between fine and medium. I think you can already sort of like spot that just by looking at the tipping right here. Quite generous on the medium. Let me bring some paper. And I'm now not going to do a full writing sample because you can see that in the single pen reviews. But I want to show you the difference in nib width really quick. So this here is a fine, in case you are not decided what nib width you should go for. This is what a fine looks like. And now we are going with the medium right here. And I already tell you, this is going to be a quite substantial difference. Now it's coming up. This medium to me is basically a broad. That's not one step up, that's basically 2 steps up, if you ask me. Last but not least, let's zoom back out again. and talk price. Here we have the Graf von Faber-Castell Classic, costing a little bit less than 500 euros, 495. That's what Appelboom charges for the pen. And then here we have the Guilloche. Appelboom takes 325 euros for that pen. So you have between 150 to 170 euro between those two pens. Is that worth it? Well, I do think that that really is up to you, as with many things, pens, of course. But I mean, objectively, these two pens are essentially the same. They both have 18 karat gold nibs. They both look more or less the same. They are both cartridge converter fillers. The only difference is that the Classic is marginally larger than the Guilloche, and that there's a difference in body material, resin versus precious wood. Does the precious wood justify a 150 plus euro price jump? Guys, I'm not a material scientist or something like that, but I wouldn't think that wood is that much more expensive than resin. Maybe it is, then I'm wrong, then let me know in the comments. But I would say that while this pen looks substantially more elegant and refined and a little bit larger and a little bit more luxurious, I think that this is actually quite a big price step up, even or especially if you take into consideration that it's more or less exactly the same pen. That's my 2 cents. I hope this review was useful to you guys, or this comparison rather. Thanks again to Appelboom and Penoblo for sending me those two for review. As said, I hope this comparison was helpful to you guys, and I'll see you at the next review. Ciao, ciao.